I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but California prison politics has to be the worst and most segregated politics in all of the United States of America. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to inmates across the country and even around the world that's done time in the feds where they talk about how California's politics, it is just horrible, and it's more R word. I'll just say the R word, right? It's more R word than the prisons down south. Because on the West Coast, right, California politics, there's a lot of stuff you can't do. Ain't no intermingling of different races. You ain't gonna, think you're gonna sell up with one person and then to go kick it with your other car. It don't work like that. So let's just get right into it. And I'm gonna kind of paint the picture of why people complain about, the California politics being so segregated and the R word. Now, when you first get off that bus, right, you're going to be on the bus, you're going to come in, right? So once you come in off that bus, you're going to have on, obviously, your leg irons, your belly chains, all that stuff. You're going to go into R&D. It's receiving and discharge. Now, as soon as you get in R&D and then you start going through all of the little procedures to check in, not check in as meaning piecing up, but you're going to go through the process, right, of being processed. Off the bat, once you go through that, you're going to know that you're in a different prison climate and you are in a different prison politics situation because they're going to ask you, right? I know some people may say, okay, what gang you're in or whatever from, other places outside of California, but they're going to tell you, okay, what race do you identify? Which races or gangs do you roll with? Things of that nature. So it's going to start making you think like, wait a minute, why are they asking me all of these questions that's centered around my race or the color of my skin? So once you go through all that, right, that's going to be your first clue that, man, I'm in a different situation. So I'm going to tell you how I did things when I worked as a CO on the block, right? And we're going to talk from the context of a USP and a medium security facility. I don't have any experience working at Lowe's or anything like that, right? But so for the purpose of this video, it's going to be USPs and mediums. So when the inmates, right, I can't count how many times, you saw the inmate train come in, they got their jumpsuits on or they got some kind of, uniform, whatever that they got from R&D that's not the same as the inmates on the yard. They got their bedroll, all that stuff. So as soon as they come in, right, they'll let me know, right, they're coming in. So I'm standing at the door. And so I'm studying them too. You know what I'm saying? So when they come in, I'll ask them, hey, what's your last name? I'll look for their information. They'll give me their bed book card. Sorry about that. And then I'll say, okay, if I know for a fact, I'll say, okay, your people are over there. And then you come in, you black. Now, black, it's tricky, right? Because I can't just say off the bat, there goes your people, because there's so many different black factions within the federal prisons, right? You can have your Crips, your Bloods, you can have your Damus, you can have your, even with the Midwest, right? They have their own stuff with the, I can't remember the name of it, but GDs, your Vice Lords, Folk Nation, things of that nature. So when you come in, right, based on the color of your skin, right, we're going to have to say, okay, you go over here, you go over here. And those are not government sanctioned behaviors, right? I can't remember this term. I think it was de facto or de jure. I can't remember off the top of my head, so please forgive me. But it's basically stating that although the government may not sanction a certain behavior or certain actions, it more or less acquiesces to it for, the sake of whatever, right? So even though this racial segregation is not government sponsored, it goes on. And for instance, right, I can't put a black dude, a Crip, in a cell with a Southsider. Even if I give them direct orders, they're going to look at me like I'm Boo-Boo the Fool, and they're not going to do nothing. They just going to go to the hole and do their little time and come back out. But they most likely wouldn't really do time. They'd probably just go to the lieutenant's office or whatever and, let things hash out there. But anyway, so when you come in, I'm going to look at your skin color and we're going to say, okay, who do you roll with if you're not sure? And then you got to worry about bed space, right? Because you can't just stay in anybody's cell that you want to. right? If you're a white boy and you come in, you might roll with the Woods or whatever, or you might be a non-affiliate. For the most part, you're going to find a place to stay. It could be with the whites. It could be with the Hispanics. I want to say I might even heard that the whites, like for a day or two, could sell up with a pice if they needed to. But they definitely cannot, be in a cell with a black person. Or possibly other cars that roll with allegiance with the black car, right? So you got that. So now here it is, right? It could be in the middle of the shift, or a lot of times it'll happen. It could be like right before count time when the people come in. So now I don't know what kind of bed space I got. I don't know how many cells I already got 2 inmates in it. And I don't know all that, right? So sometimes I would have to rely on the inmates, not as them being COs, but let's say if a Southsider comes in, right? And we might be filled to capacity or whatever the case may be. That shot caller for the unit, they're going to know faster than I'm going to know if they have somewhere for that person to stay, right? Now, again, I'm not relying on that Southsider as an authority figure or anything like that. I'm just saying, trying to explain this because some people may not understand, why are you listening to an inmate, this, that, and the other? But you could be on overtime, you know what I'm saying? You could be working, you might not be a regular. You're just in there for the time being, so you may not know the layout of the unit. So you go, if you know who the shot caller is for that car, hey, you got one, where can they go? And at least to figure it out tonight for the count and then figure it out tomorrow. Because a lot of times, I can't go into too many details for security purpose reasons, but a lot of times, we're not going to have access to know the exact bed space for various reasons, and I'll just leave it at that. So now here it is, you got these inmates coming in, and it's kind of left up to us to try to figure out, okay, where they belong, this, that, and the other. So you kind of get the picture, right? When you come in, you just don't pick your cell. You don't, come in the unit with your eyes closed and blindfolded, and you turn in a circle with your arm pointed out. I pick 202. You can't do that. You got to go to the cells. And I can say, with the blacks, it's harder because, there could be times where a black dude, he say, I don't bang. I don't roll with anybody. I'm just by myself. So then at that point, I'll just say, all right, go see one of the blacks. They'll figure it out. So now it comes to going to the chow hall, right? Because when you get in, the inmates, they gonna give the rundown for each car. They're gonna say where you can take your showers or what times you can take your showers, how long you can take your showers. They're gonna tell you which cells belongs to the blacks, which cells belongs to the whites, the Hispanics, all that stuff. They're gonna go through all that. And again, this is not government sponsored. There are no rules and policies that say that we must segregate the inmates based on their race or affiliation with race or their gang. These are things that the inmates have manufactured. And we know better, and the administration knows better than to try to cross that. You know what I'm saying? I'll give a quick story, and then I'll continue on. I was a rookie, right? I didn't know any better. We was going to come up to like 4 o'clock count. And so I was trying to get everybody in their cell rushing. So I saw this, he was a Crip, and I saw the Southside. I told the story before. But I didn't know that they weren't supposed to, they can't cell up together. So the door was open. I said, all right, man, y'all two, come on, let's go. I got it locked down. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? And then he was like, hey, nah, we can't do that. I'm black. And then I was like, okay, I'm black too. What's your point? It wasn't clicking because I didn't know. So he was like, nah, you can't match people up like that. We have to roll with our car. And the prison administration is fully aware of that. And there will be times where sometimes, prison administration, they'll get a bug up their behind, and then they'll try to say, no, these aren't white cells or black cells or whatever. We're going to integrate this stuff. These are government cells. But it never works because we know, because again, right, you got to think about the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. And it goes back to, I can't remember because I'm shooting from the hip, if it's de jure or de facto, meaning that although the government doesn't sanction it, they still acquiesce to it. So they know full well that if you put somebody in the wrong cell, it could get them unalive. You know what I mean? So you get the rundown of the rules, then you go to the chow hall. They're going to tell you where you going to sit, how long you can sit, who you can talk to, who you can't talk to. They got white tables. They have the Hispanic table. Sometimes they may have, it just depends on the numbers from the cars, but sometimes the Paisas, they may have their own table. You may have Southsiders that might have their own, or they may share a long table, and you may have Paisas on one side, Southsiders on the other. Then you're going to have the blacks, right? Now the blacks, again, because they're so fragmented, they figure that out however they figure that out. But whatever car they're in, the blacks got to stay at the certain tables. Then you got your white boys. They stay at their certain table. And you are told, you bet not go sit down at one of these tables because we going to bust your head to the white meat. Now, even when it comes to cleaning, right? Because you're going to have orderlies, right, that work in food service. So their jobs are to kind of keep the sanitation of the, chow hall and all that stuff. And so they'll have people, I guess on the streets, you would call them bus boys. So you have the equivalent of bus boys inside the prisons, right? But with these bus boys, let's say if you're supposed to be a bus boy over the black table, you got to be black. If you're going to be a bus boy over the south side table or south side section, you got to be south side. The same for the whites, you got to be whites. And the theory behind that is, no race is going to be cleaning up after each other. Now, this could be different at different facilities, right? I'm only talking about the California politics, right? And it can cause problems, right? Especially, let's say let's say you had a white dude that rolls with the whites and they were cleaning up the black table and maybe they didn't do a good enough job, or maybe they missed the spot. And if a black inmate says something about it, that could cause some serious issues. So it'll be your own people that'll be the bus boys for that table. Now, I'm not trying to be disrespectful calling them bus boys. I'm just trying to make it in layman's terms for people to understand that have not done time in prison or whatever the case may be. So when you go to the rec yard, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to tell you what area belongs to the different races and the cars, and you can't just cross through when you want to. You got to say, excuse me, if your ball go in that area, you just got to wait. From what I've seen, like say if let me see, let me give a good example. You might have Southsiders playing wall ball, right? And then not too far away, you got the basketball courts. There's been times where the wall ball would bleed over to the basketball court where the brothers was playing, and the brothers, they don't waste too much time. They just throw the ball back. And sometimes the basketball could bleed over into the Southsiders area on the handball, or the Pisces on the handball. And so they don't take much long to throw the basketball back to them. Now, maybe that could just be a sign of respect, mutual respect, just saying, hey, I'm not going to make you wait. I'm not going to try to stun on you, things of that nature. But whatever the case it may be, that's how it is. Even when you go to shoot. Now, it depends, right? Because if you're in bad standings or you checked in, at least in the federal sector, when you say checked in or went up top, that's the equivalent of saying that you PC'd up in the state or you went out backwards in the state. It's same thing, right? So in shoe, it could be a little different because I've seen dudes that, checked in and they selling up with different people that they normally would not be able to do on the street. I mean, on the yard. And that's just because they already considered in their gangs to be no good. Now, I told the story in another video. Here's another big thing that a lot of people that are not from California or don't understand the California West Coast politics is you have to stick with your race. Now, in California, right, I've talked to a different COs, and they'll say that I guess also, too, it depends on the yard, but usually from the COs that I talk to, they're on level 3, level 4 yards, and they were like, hey, when it comes to like gambling and all that kind of stuff, or buying pharmaceuticals, they can only buy it within their own people, even when it comes to gambling. But in the feds, it's totally different. I've seen numerous times where you would have, and they're gambling, but the problem is it's not about what you know, it would be what you can prove, right? If they don't have any stamps out, or if they ain't got no soups on the table, this, that, and the other, you can waste your time. Now, see, this comes from experience, right? Because there's a lot of times where people want to try to write up inmates and all that kind of petty stuff. And I'm not into all that, right? Because it's not about what you know, it's what you can prove. Can you go, can your situation where you wrote a person up, Can that withstand, you know what I'm saying, scrutiny within the DHO, or if it goes to the appellate level in the courts, whatever the case may be. So you can have dudes, and I've seen it numerous times where you'll have, you know, Southsiders, blacks, whites, all different cars that'll sit at the table. And obviously, you know, they're gambling. But again, they keep it respectful, so you're not going to really know. Now, if you see dudes at the table gambling and they got stamps out and they just doing all that, they being disrespectful with it because they put you on blast, because you don't know what person could walk in. The warden could walk in, a lieutenant, a captain, or just another CO. And then they see that stuff and then they'll go and, oh, well, you sanction that stuff. You enjoy that stuff. And that ain't the case. So they even have chess and checker pieces and all those stuff that's ingrained on the table. So again, even though you know they're gambling, you'll see the different races. But from what I've talked to with different COs from the state, they say that's not allowed. That's a big no-no. So I'm like, okay, I get it. But, you know, when they do that, I'll sometimes crack because, you know, I'm jaded and I be talking crazy. And so, again, even though I can't prove it, I know there's going to be some COs watching this video. Well, you know what they're doing and you should take the dice and you should blah, 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 blah. How will that be upheld? I don't want to do anything to waste my time. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give you a great example. There was this CO, it was a female CO, and she wanted to write up this inmate because he had on him a section from the newspaper, because inmates, they can get newspapers that come in on subscription. So he had a section of, you know, the sporting side where you know, place the bets. So he had that in his pocket. And then, no, he had it on the table. And so she walked up to him and then she just took it from him. And she was going to try to write him up for whatever the shot would be the equivalent to. And so she kind of asked us what we thought. And this was before I started law school. And I don't know if she still did the shot or not, but she was like, I'm going to hit him up for gambling or gambling paraphernalia, whatever it was. And I was like, man, if you want to do it, that's cool. But how can you prove he was using that for gambling purposes? Now, it would be different if he had stamps on the table, if he had, because, you know, when different inmates are running these gambling rings and stuff, they're going to have their own logo. Whatever their gambling ring name is called, they're going to have their logo up there. I don't know, Big Booty Hustle, you know, 925, whatever it is, right? So you'll see that it's clearly related to or facilitating gambling purposes, which is not allowed. But for him to just have the newspaper, I mean, just thinking of it objectively, right? He could just say, hey, I'm just reading the newspaper. I'm just a sports fan. And again, that type of understanding, it only comes with time. Now, the crazy thing is this female officer, she had way more time than me, right? At least way more time in terms of working in the feds, right? So it can be stuff like that. But anyways, there is a racial intermingling, but that's only when it comes to money. And then now as far as, and I'm going to keep going too. I'm going to keep going. Hold on, man. I ain't even going to stop. Let me keep going. Man, if I bend it down too much. Well, there goes your funny joke of the day. I got to keep it up this high, because if I try to drop it, it's going to drop too far. All right. So anyway, that's definitely, I can't even remember where I was at, but anyways, the racial intermingling usually will only come in the form of like gambling and stuff. And even with that, I've seen it where it got intense. Like you'll have different races and cars on the table doing their thing. Obviously, you know, they're not showing proof of gambling and this, that, and the other. But you'll see them, and then all of a sudden, it's like the entire cell begins to separate. And I don't know if y'all know what that's like. Even I would imagine from an inmate's perspective, if you're in a unit and then all of a sudden you see the entire the entire unit just completely like, boom, separate, and everybody's with their own respective cars. I've seen that over these alleged innocent games. So there are a lot of issues. And here's another thing, and I'm going to try to wrap it up because this camera, man, I don't know what happened, but I'm keeping it rolling, man. So another thing, man time. A lot of people that are not accustomed to California or West Coast politics, they operate on what's called man time. And man time is where if you got a problem with another man, Y'all both grown. Y'all can go in the cell around the corner, whatever, and handle it. And then once it's over, it's over. You shake hands or you don't, and it's done. But it's not like that in California, under California politics. If one goes, they all have to go. Now, there was a dude that did a video. I didn't even want to talk about him. He's a clown. I don't want to talk about him. But anyways, that's huge. But, California politics, you cannot do that. You can't do no black person is just going to have a straight up fade or a fair fade with, a south side or this, that, and the other. If one go, all of them goes, and it's just a car crash. And I believe I told the story, and I'm going to wrap it up. I know I sound like a preacher. I'm going to close. But anyways, I remember this dude. He came from the East Coast, and I made him one of my orderlies. He was black. He was a blood, and somehow he was a Muslim. Again, I don't know how that works. I guess you're gang banging and loving God at the same time, whatever. But he was telling me about the man time, on the East Coast. And he was just saying how when he arrived, he was at another facility in the Western region, right? And he was like, man, I called out the South Side in front of everybody to go in the cell and fight. And then he was like, when he did that, he said, again, I think I said in the other video, not too long ago, he said that it was like the cartoons where the music comes to a screeching halt, everybody stops, and you're just like, wait a minute, what is going on? And then one of the black dudes had to pull him over. Hey, we can't do that. It don't work like that. So you'll have a lot of inmates that come from other non-Western states, and they'll be like, man, and I'll just be honest, right? I'll bring this up. And this is not my words. It's the words from them. They believe, in their opinions, that people that roll in these car situations or they can't do one-on-ones, they've said, numerous times that they consider those people to be cowards because they're not on man time. They're not standing on their own 2 feet, and they're hiding behind their car. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I'll let y'all decide that. I'm not going to delve into that and provide my own opinion. But yes, when you go from a situation to where if you don't like somebody one day, no matter who they are in the prison or whatever, you can call them out and squabble or whatever. It ain't happening. It's just going to be a complete car crash. So hopefully you guys got a little bit. I kind of went off the beaten path a little bit, but hopefully you guys get some kind of edification out of this because it's true. It's different. It is segregated like a mug out here, and it is not something that the government chooses to do or sanctions. It's just, it is what it is because you cannot make these people go against their inmate codes because they can be seriously injured and or killed behind it. So until the next one, holla at your boy.